So 37 kilometres from our campsite at Reefton, we have driven out to the ghost town of Waiuta. Now we have been out here before, about 20 odd years ago, in my dad's camper. The road is good, it's sealed for part of the way and then it turns to gravel. It's quite narrow and winding, but you drive through beautiful beech forest. Completely doable if you just take your time, especially around some of those corners in case you meet anything coming the other way. So Waiuta was actually a bit later in New Zealand's mining history, and back in 1905 they hit the motherload with the discovery of a whole heap of quartz. They nicknamed this area Quartzopolis because it was producing so much quartz, and it was the largest gold producing mine in the South Island, and it was only overtaken by the Martha mine in Waihi for its quartz production. So there are quite a series of walks around the old ghost town, and we are going to head off and do the town walk. There are lots of history boards and photos around so that we can see how the town was laid out. And then what we're hoping to do is do the Snowy River track, which is the longest track, and you can actually do this as a loop. And it takes about 2.5 hours, but we will maybe go on to that after we've had a look around the town. So the Prohibition Shaft was worked for a further 15 years after the Blackwater Shaft shut down. Blackwater Shaft was mined for 30 years. So luckily we picked up a pamphlet.
Definitely.
Luckily we picked up a pamphlet from the information centre. You can have all the information online that you want, but there's still nothing better than a good old pamphlet booklet about the area. So we're walking from where we parked down the bottom, we're walking up Top Road. You know, we could have driven it, but it's far better to walk it because then you don't miss anything. But we're walking past sites that you would never know that there were boarding houses.
A workingmen's club.
Workingmen's club.
Actually, just here to the right, so I'll just pop in there, eh? So we're just along here.
So somewhere along here was the Workingmen's Club.
Oh, it was just after the bend before the next bend.
Sorry, Scotty.
It was just after the bend was the Workingmen's Club.
The Workingmen's Club is dry. Now this must have been a very busy spot. This was the police station. And there is a photo board of what it looked like with snow all around it in 1912. Thank God it's not like that today. We've come across the site of the old post office, which is the official start of the town walk around Waiuta. Now it's starting to look more like a town.
That's New Road. There's a general store along there, according to this. But that's also where gold was discovered. It's marked on here, look.
Down in this pit?
Down around here somewhere, yeah.
Huh. So Waiuta continued to be a really productive gold mine, and it continued on for around 45 years. But it was... the end of Waiuta was quite sudden for the miners, because in 1951 the Blackwater Shaft had a major cave-in. The Blackwater Shaft is where we are at the moment, and it cut off the critically important ventilation and pumping systems. The lower levels of the mine soon flooded, and the rest of it filled with poisonous gas. They faced even more complex problems to reopen the mine. And there was quite a few investments made in the 1930s. And after that, there were quite difficult years. Labour shortages and after World War II caused the production to fall. And then the union stepped in 1951 demanding a large backdated wage claim. The owners decided that it was easier to close the mine than to pay out the wage claim. So it wasn't shut down because of the lack of gold, it was shut down because of all the difficulties surrounding running it. So it is actually quite tantalising to think that there's still gold here. So if there had not been that collapse, maybe it could still be operating today. So this is where it all began. Gold was discovered on this spot in 1905. Hence starting the creation of Waiuta.
That mine, the Blackwater mine, must have gone down a long way and underneath us because there's some shafts.
Those are the ventilation shafts. Played on these fields. So this view here is looking at that view there. Certainly changed a lot. And this view here is looking out towards that view. Of what was here, and this is the picture of the horses carrying the quartz along the tramway to the Snowy Battery, which we're on our way to, and this incline started back down by Blackwater Mine where we were. We've just walked around, so this is the old incline track
up at Blackwater.
So we diverted off the Snowy Creek Battery trail and took the old incline. So that track, as I said and showed you the photo, was where they brought the ore out of the mine down to the battery, and that little overgrown incline has led us to the mouth of the mine. And just in that entranceway it has collapsed, so you can't go any further than pretty much what you see there. Just ascending down the hill to the Snowy Creek Battery, and you see all these big tanks. They used to hold all the cyanide, which is how they used to extract the gold out of the rock. And I was reading in the museum part by the eyesight that they just used to empty out the cyanide into the river, but it was okay to eat the fish so long as the gills were pink. If they were white, then they were left alone because they had cyanide poisoning. Oh, how
and they weren't floating.
And they weren't floating. Oh, God. Thank God times have changed. So the 30-minute walk from the car park where we parked at the start of the track to the Snowy Creek battery took us 40 minutes because we diverted off and walked part of the old incline. So now we're just headed from the battery to the Powerhouse. So we're doing the Powerhouse walk, and it's taking us down past the beautiful stream, which may or may not still be full of cyanide. Certainly some sections of this track I was not happy about, and there's obviously a very recent slip. It's called bank hugging. I'll come up with a new word, bank hugging, because that track got very narrow very quickly with a very, very big drop down to the river. So it was about a 45-minute walk from Snowy Creek Battery to the Powerhouse. And here we have the old Powerhouse. The story goes, the water that ran the Snowy Creek Battery, where we were before, was reused to power the Waiuta settlement, mining settlement.
So follow the water race is the track that we followed all the way through.
We did walk the whole way beside a fairly deep water race. So yeah, they reused the water from the battery. So look at that, a bit of recycling even back then.
And that water...
What's the story behind that boot? Look at that boot. That is an old boot.
Oh yeah, I think it's similar to one we saw at Mitchison, eh?
Hey, we've made it back to the car. Now, just for my own memory, that took us about 50 minutes. Yeah, 50 minutes from the Powerhouse back to the car. And so we have been away pretty much bang on 2.5 hours. Here's the sun, 2.5 hours. And that was diverting off to go and have a look at the part of that incline track, having a good look around the battery and the cyanide tanks, and then back. So that 50 minutes was pretty much all uphill the whole way. Oh, but I'm not sure. Can you see that snow? The sun glistening off that snow in the mountains. So from the Blackwater mine shaft, we've carried on driving up quite a narrow, windy road, and we're now up at the Prohibition mine site, and this is where they ran winding engines that winched 2 cages up and down the vertical Prohibition Shaft. But if you take a look at here, this signboard here is actually quite interesting. So that's the Blackwater Shaft where we were initially,
This is the Prohibition.
and we're up the top at the Prohibition Shaft, and all this
is the worked quartz that they did right down to all these levels.
So I had no idea that there was this many tunnels all underneath us. So we're standing up the top there at the moment.
So they expected this to carry on down to like the level 17 and all this area through here. So all this was the current extraction of quartz they're looking at back in 1948.